Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Conversations that touch the heart and inspire change. Here on African Diaries, only on Channel Africa. Join us on www.channelafrica.co.za.
It is 10 p.m. Central Africa time. A blessed and beautiful one to you and yours. Welcome to African Diaries. Sheila Ndikumana keeping you company. And I've got you for the next 2 hours. What we'll be doing in this 2 hours is perhaps a question you may be asking yourself. And I'm here to tell you. So we are focusing on self-love as well as communal love. And we are going to be specifically delving into past traumas, generational trauma, transgenerational trauma, how this affects yourself, your loved ones, the generations to come. How far deep can it go into the generations? I recently learned that generational trauma can stretch into the 3rd and 4th generation. So these individuals would be prone to anxiety, depression, and whatever else it is that the generation that experienced that trauma was facing. And that for me is a little tricky. So we want to heal this evening. And then in the second hour of the show, we talk all things language and how learning someone else's language is a form of communal love. Now, I want to hear from you this evening. Please do find us on social media at Channel Africa 1 is where you find us.
Africa Speaks on African Diaries with Sheila Ndikumana. Love music, love culture, love life. Because you on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Je faisais ma route, je tressais ma vie, à chercher mes désirs enfouis, éclairant mes doutes, mes certitudes aussi, pour mêler le cœur à l'esprit. Un matin, je croise ton chemin, comme une ombre pressée dans mes pas, tu étais mon destin. Shadow dancer, let me dance with you. Shadow dancer, mama, yeah, yeah, yeah. Shadow dancer, are you lonely too? Shadow dancer. S'ouvrent les regards, brillent les alliances qui unissent nos différences. Quand revient l'espoir de marcher comme on danse, le chemin est une évidence. Dans nos bras, je n'ai jamais senti aussi fort la chaleur de s'aimer, le désir d'être en vie. Shadow dancer, let me dance with you. Shadow dancer. Shadow dance, shadow dancer. Are you lonely too? Shadow dancer. Mama, you. Shadow dance, shadow dancer. Let me dance with you. Shadow dancer. Shadow
our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
Thought you all about me. Plenty missed calls, you forgot about me. I took a risk to follow my dreams. When I'm in the mini one, I'm feeling like Bean. I swear, you can have a baby by me. I've been trapping since 2014. You don't have to choose sides, play for my team. You don't want to tell me kilo twella codeine. That's why, hell feel a down, go twar. Kilo problematic, I'm the young Dwayne Card. Started off in the trap, now we in the cars. Hell lit, difficult, take it low fast. I'm a twag, I'm just gonna keep it one hand. And richer than me, when I want my hand. We can turn him to a leg though, if you want. Before you pop the crystal, Tomaga Savan. Kahubala 5 bob, Tamaga di ham. Manorega fenti, unana girihan. Tulega oregisa, hena montan. Right, that's Calvake, Pama Sukolar. I swear, you can never baby by me. I've been trapping since 2014. You don't have to choose sides, play for my team. You don't want to tell me kilo dollar codeine.
Only you got something special there. It's just you and me together and forever, yeah. Onyana wanga fisha, sefata kosa kosa ntawisha, yeah. Only you got something special, yeah. And if you down, yeah, just call me down, yeah. It don't matter to me, I'll be right there. Say, if you down, yeah, just call me down, yeah. It don't matter to me, I'll be right there, yeah.
I keep an angel around me. I can yagi POP, it's for a vampire. I got real love for you, I see speed. Wow, but I'm a masala can no speed, I swear. What you heard about me? When I call you out the line, Twaga gon' need. I was really selling dope, Zanga got sniff. If a dime residue, Pumula Mamin, damn, you could be the mother of my kids. I remember closing eyes, first time we kiss. You know where I'm from, you can blink and get killed. One false move, God, it can get real. Mutwag, heaven lunch, chiga sonta. I'm sure I couldn't be with you, Naguelonyak. Toxic, petene, cause you take a mark. Reciprocate, it's a regalo for taskies. I know everything is all about me. All about leaning, all about weed. Hurts when you tell me, Kilo, what about me? James ain't fast, you forgot about me. I swear, you can never baby by me. I've been trapping since 2014. You don't have to choose sides, play for my team. You don't want to tell me Kilo Dwella codeine.
Only you got something special there. It's just you and me together and forever, yeah. Onyana wanga fisha, sefata kosa kosa ntawisha, yeah. Only you got something special, yeah. Something special, yeah.
It is 9 minutes after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. 25K coming in with this one titled Something Special. And that alongside Marcus Harvey. Before that, we had Lokua Kanza taking us to the Republic of Congo. And that song titled Shadow Dancer, often referred to when recalling a show dancer. If you have just joined us, thank you so much for choosing us over the rest. This is Channel Africa's African Diaries. Sheila Ndikumana keeping you company. And on the other side of this break, we are going to be scribing in our diary.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Ritmos e cultura. Com Jacob Tivani.
E os ouvintes do Ritmos e Cultura, hoje em linha com uma das grandezas da música moçambicana, porque não? Ele que é um dos kings da marrabenta, uma bermuda in the building.
É um prazer enorme estar a fazer parte deste programa. Deixe-me só saudar. Boa tarde a todos os ouvintes que me ouvem neste preciso momento. Meu nome é Uma Bermuda, de Alau Fanelo Estarapo, Gajo Jaguta Fanhela é Mabiscato. Eu vou saudar de uma maneira diferente. Tita Buia Mwanango, Tiduma Tifika Guiane. Tita Buia Mwanango, Tiduma Tifika Guiane. Ani motive lo ababa yena otiva mina haikonama. Ani motive lo anona yena otiva wahimbo watwa. Cá estou eu, irmão, para conversarmos, para falarmos um pouco de tudo. Estou aqui, estou aberto. Eu estou muito feliz porque é a primeira vez que eu falo nesta rádio, falo para os ouvintes, então estou muito feliz.
Ritmos e cultura com Jacob Tivani. Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas.
11 minutes after 10 p.m. Central Africa time, and it's time for us to get into that moment where we choose to scribe in our diary. And we're going to be listening to the Meridian, who tells us how pain travels through generations.
Pain travels through generations, often referred to as generational trauma or generational curses. This represents your grandparents. It may not have started with them, but we're going to start with them. They had some form of pain or trauma, whether it was handed back down from their parents or they endured it themselves. But either way, unintentionally, they passed it on to your parents because they didn't know any better. It wasn't their fault, whether it was lack of resources or knowledge. And this represents your parents who passed it on to you for the same story and the same reason, unintentionally. They didn't know any better. But now there's you. You have one of pain travels through generations.
And just like that, it will be time for us to get into. Firstly, I believe that we are going to be listening to an individual who has experienced a generational trauma, and they will be detailing out their story. But also, we'll be getting into a conversation with an individual who will help us heal collectively. Okay, if you're thinking to yourself, Sheila, listen, I've just heard this theory, I've heard this story, generational trauma, third, fourth generation. Sure, but how do we fix it? Is the question. Please do stick around and find us on WhatsApp. Perhaps you want to be anonymous tonight. You're saying, I want to share my story. I want to share my thoughts and views, but I do not want to disclose who I am. I'd love to hear from you. Nonetheless, +278 3288 6684.
Channel Africa 1060. 6 decades of stories, voices, and vision. African Diaries. Weekdays, 10 till midnight.
Lango ya pemba muna muto na boandewa ngenge wa miwende nae na we mitenge yotiba na bomane wa obasa basa wanongola nie bomane baba miso bongo na tolino lango ya pemba muna muto na boandewa. basa, que me se melody. Ah, wala mumi wa mama na moande wa, wetenge bao basa, que me se melody.
Africa's very own think tank. This is Channel Africa Online. www.channelafrica.co.za.
tsakisa nandro bateya mpitsikia malifaly nefa indro nesesinao de latsa nefa tokisanao to lasa fazaranao lay mandatsaka ndraindray itotsy zaka sendrambany anjera fa tsy hoe marefo tafitoana fotsiny afa tsy hoe rese molitraka ihany mana tena trany tsy tonga ifamaly ao tsy ala fanao zay vitako ihany rehefa tianao fedy mampifilafile distikanao fedy mba mampifilafile amanao fona anafisafanao za anampitamby anao rasendra miady oh la la. Molitraka ihany mana tena trany tsy tonga ifamaly ao tsy ala fanao zay vitako ihany ramba fantatrao mantsy ramba fantatrao mantsy any tsy mba tsapanao mantsy tsy mba tsapanao mantsy any.
Twoki coming in, and that one titled Disco Tiako. Before that, we had Munyengu and that beautiful number there by Grace Decker. 22 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time for us to get into that recap feature. This is a moment to flip through the pages that were today, the 26th of January on Channel Africa. What were the conversations hosted? We kickstart off with the Rise and Shine team, where Nelson Chamisa returns with Agenda 2026, aiming to tackle corruption and dispute elections. Analyst Tendai Mbofana weighs in.
And we go to Zimbabwe now, where opposition leader Nelson Chamisa has announced a return to active politics 2 years after stepping away from the Citizens Coalition for Change. He's launched what he calls Agenda 2026, a citizens' movement aimed at addressing what he describes as a deep governance crisis marked by disputed elections, corruption, and state capture. But questions remain about its impact, its structure, and whether it can reshape Zimbabwe's political landscape. For analysis, we're joined now by Zimbabwean political analyst Tendai Mbofana. Tendai, good morning and thank you for making time to talk to us.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Good morning, and good morning to all your listeners and viewers.
Our pleasure. So, Chamisa deciding to return to politics, what do you make of this move? He's now coming under Agenda 2026. He's not with a political party, he's with this citizens movement.
Yes, Hassan, that was a very interesting development. Actually, it was not surprising. We've been following Nelson Chamisa for the past 2 years, where he was supposed to be on some sort of a heist or sabbatical, but he was signaling that anytime he was going to come back. So it really didn't take us by surprise as Zimbabweans. What we were just wondering when was he going to come back and in what form was he going to come back? But as you have already alluded to, he came back under this theme of Agenda 2026 and a movement rather than a political party. And he made a very interesting comment that in the 2 years that he's not been on the dance floor, so as to speak, so that's how he described it, no one else has been able to come onto that dance floor and dance, so he decided to come back and dance himself. So we wait to see what type of dance has he brought onto the table. Has he come to tango? Has he come to dance alone? Has he come to disco? We don't know. That's what we are waiting for. it's all good, fair and good to talk about Agenda 2026 and a people's movement rather than a political party. But the taste, is in eating. What is it in this movement that will be different from a political party? I remember some was a mention of what happened during the liberation struggle. That
And then keeping things on the move, Palisatau and Benjamin Mshatama looked at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that blends strength, cardio and mobility. Chris Bright from PE Submission Fighting explains. And then we move on to Africa Update. The UN warns internet shutdowns are rising worldwide, threatening democracy and education. Tendai Mabanje discussed this with the Africa Update team. And then we move to the upside, where illicit alcohol raises tax increases, and this posing serious risks. We had Rise Evans from Alco Safe, who unpacked further.
I don't have to worry about the risks associated with it. Besides, obviously, feeling a bit tipsy, depending on how many I drink. But the illicit market is one that is growing, and that is one that is of a massive concern. All right, do we have our guest on the line? Still not. We'll take a quick breather. When we get back, we'll have a conversation with Rice Evans. He's the managing director at Alco Safe, because he needs to help us navigate this illicit alcohol market. So that, you know what is driving it though? The tax, like you said, the sin tax.
Yeah, alcohol is expensive.
People can't afford the legal one. So what must they do? Now they go to the back door, so backyards, and buy alcohol there because it's cheaper, and they get high, they get inebriated a lot quicker. But that is a potential risk for your liver, your kidneys. I don't think that's a good thing. So we'll be getting into conversation with Rice Evans in a moment. Let's take a quick breather. It's 17 minutes after 3 p.m. Central.
And then lastly, on Africa in business, Zambia plans a $1.1 billion refinery to meet the national fuel demand. And IDC CEO who joined in, Cornwell Muyela, further delved into this and very much more were discussed on the platform that is Channel Africa. For those stories, and of course the more that I alluded to, please do head over to www.channelafrica.co.za. If you're looking to watch these conversations, you're more than welcome to head over to YouTube. Look out for Channel Africa. Simply head over to the video section. If you're saying, Sheila, I want a specific interview. I get that the 3 hour, the 2 hour, the hour long show is great, but I want to watch this interview. Head over to the video section and scroll down looking for the thumbnail and of course the header that would suggest what you want to listen to. But if you're saying, listen, I've got time to kill and I really love listening to Channel Africa, we do have every single live show podcasted on YouTube. So you head over to the live section and you should see the shows in full. It is 29 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. Some music. When we get back, we look into generational trauma.
From Cape to Cairo, every beat tells a story. It's African Diaries on Channel Africa. Africa's story shines at 60. Channel Africa.
The African perspective.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet.
Channel 802.
Davido keeping us on our toes. This one titled With You alongside Omalay, 31 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. Let's begin with hearing from Anonymous, and this is an anonymous guest who courageously shared his life story. In a pre-recorded reflection, he speaks about how unresolved generational trauma delayed his ability to experience love fully and impacted his journey towards financial freedom. His story reminds us that self-love is not always about indulgence, but sometimes and often about confronting inherited pain and choosing healing.
Hi, African Diaries. My name is Anonymous. I love tonight's topic. I would like to share my personal story as someone who's gone through generational trauma without actually realizing it for the most part of their adulthood. And I would like to preface this by saying that Black people generally don't discuss generational trauma. They don't discuss the traumas that that they have experienced in their past, because that would lead to accountability, and we all know that our parents don't like to account for much, and so did their parents as well. So I think my story, I'll share my personal story with you and my personal experiences. I think things that I find hard to talk about even today, but I'm learning and I'm getting better at it. It's the financial problems that I've faced because of the generational trauma that I found myself in, the emotional well-being, factors such as religion, factors such as spirituality also comes into play, as well as my physical well-being. I like to start by saying that generally Black people don't talk about money, and it's a fact. We know money makes us uncomfortable. When we were growing up, I didn't know what we could afford and what we couldn't afford. But I knew that we were struggling. We were not like most families. We made do. My dad was a miner. He would come every fortnight. I think that's twice in a month, or sometimes once a month. And I know when he was around, then that's when we would slightly be comfortable. There'll be a little bit of food here and there, but for the most part, we were struggling to make ends meet. And I know very well that my dad was not only taking care of us, he was also taking care of his parents, which are my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather. So it was a financial burden on him, or financial responsibility that he had to undertake as someone who was currently working at the time. And then now I found myself now having to take over the responsibility of helping out my my siblings, because now I'm the one who's working. I'm the one who, for lack of a better word, has a good job. But I also find myself struggling, and I come to 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 terms with what my reality is, and I can't accept such a life that I'm currently living right now. But I had to question so many things in my life, like I was talking, like spirituality. I had to question, where does my religion lie? Am I still in tune with what I believe in? But more than anything else, I've realized that the more you learn, the more you find out, rather, is the more you learn. And these are some of the conversations that we then have with our friends who are peers at this age, but we're not quite sure what we're talking about, because these are just us expressing the burden or the responsibilities that we have. It's not like we're looking for a professional help to help us figure out what is generational trauma and how to overcome it. This is just us airing out our grievances with our mates. I remember when I was in university and then I had financial aid. I would also work on the side. But when I went home, because at the time it was, no, you live in Joburg, you must have money, but not knowing that you actually went to school to study. You'd be expected to come with, and this is an unspoken expectation. You're expected to come with plastikinyana, all these little things. But then you get to realize that, no, man, this is not how life should be, and then you get you get exposed to a different life outside of the life that you know. I think for most part, the financial aspect of the generational trauma is the one that really affects us mostly, and then it trickles down to the emotional part of it, the religion, you questioning your spirituality, your physical part that people don't talk about. It really takes a toll, because I have noticed that when I'm not well emotionally, it tends to show in my physique. and I'm a runner. I run. I enjoy running, and that's my escape. When I feel like I'm burdened with so many things, I run. But it's not healthy because essentially I've attached running to running away from my problems, and it doesn't work like that. So I think today's topic is actually very interesting, and I'm hoping that my black brothers and sisters are listening to to the show right now so that they can learn more about how to break this vicious cycle of generational trauma, and I think that for the most part it starts with just being honest, having honest, truthful conversations about who needs what, who needs to be helped, up until what point. And yeah, more than anything else, that's what needs to be done, I think. But you never stop learning. For the last few years, generational trauma has just been the buzzword, and we are learning about generational wealth as well, how to acquire it. But how do you acquire generational wealth while you're still struggling with generational trauma? You have to address one before you can move to the next. So I hope today's show will shed some light on how to fully navigate these complex challenges that we see ourselves in. And I'll be listening in. And like I said, I'm anonymous, and I hope people can relate to my story and start having honest conversations with themselves to ask, where am I, like, who am I helping, who needs help, but till what point? Because you also have to live your own life, and you can only do so when, I think, because of the trauma, you can only do so when the people that you love, your family, is okay. Thank you for listening to my story.
The voice there of Anonymous, detailing out his experiences and just life through his lens when it comes to generational trauma, how he encountered it and how he saw it manifest in his space. We are going to be getting into a conversation with Dr. Kitumedzi Mashego, who is a clinical and sports psychologist, a speaker and author, a mindset and performance life coach as well. And we'll be looking to address that very question. How do we navigate our day-to-day existence, having to heal from generational trauma? I can only imagine that this isn't one sit down, one conversation. This is a continuous pursuit. And so Dr. Dumi will help us on that front. For now, a quick breather.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
A situação do ativista angolano Serrote José de Oliveira, preso desde julho, tem gerado grande preocupação internacional. Conhecido como General Nila e presidente do movimento União Nacional para a Total Revolução de Angola, Serrote iniciou uma greve de fome em protesto contra a sua prisão, que considera arbitrária. De acordo com a Amnistia Internacional, o estado de saúde do ativista está a deteriorar-se rapidamente devido à falta de acesso a cuidados médicos adequados. Para discutir o impacto deste caso e o estado da liberdade política em Angola, vamos conversar com Dito Dale, ativista e defensor dos direitos humanos.
Nós estamos diante de uma clara estratégia de aniquilar o jovem, porque quando uma pessoa está doente, deve ser assistido. Ao não proporcionar esses cuidados médicos, o que é que o regime quer? Não quer que esse jovem saia livre e com vida da prisão, quer matá-lo.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África.
Turn the page. It's African Diaries on Channel Africa.
It is 20 minutes before 11 p.m. Central African time. To help us unpack this powerful yet deeply personal conversation of generational trauma, we are joined by a professional who understands the psychological weight of what we inherit and how healing can change not just one's life, but the generations to come. We are joined by Dr. Kitumedzi Mashego, who is a clinical and sports psychologist, a speaker, an author, a mindset and a performance life coach. Dr. Dumi is, of course, highly skilled at this particular field of study, having a PhD and MBA in just those, to name a few of her qualifications, and is the founder of Riba One Wellness. Her work focuses on healing trauma, enhancing performance, and helping individuals break limiting cycles so that they can live healthier, more fulfilling lives. And that's what we're going to be addressing. How do we get to a place where we're living healthier, more free, more exuberant, more excited impacting lives? And how can we whip ourselves out of this generational trauma cycle? Dr. Tumi, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Thank you for having me. Good evening to the listeners.
Dr. Tumi, we have to an extent given definition to generational trauma, right? Something inherited that can seep its way into the third, fourth generation. That freaked me out a little bit, I'll be honest with you. But I want us to talk about the ability, or is there even an ability to be able to differentiate between your own personal traumas versus that which you've inherited from whoever it is in the lineage?
I think let's first unpack what trauma is. Trauma is not what happens to you, but what goes on internally. So me and you can experience something, but one of us can find it traumatic and another one doesn't. And it's because of what's going on internally, right? So that internal wound that has formed in one of us can lead to, certain reactions, certain perceptions about the world. And it can also lead to lasting psychological impact where we get people who are very defensive. They've got rigid defense mechanisms. They struggle with the personality traits. And we say things like, unjalo, they are like that. But there's no unjalo when it comes to a person. No one is born, angry, for example, So it is because of what has happened to them. And that internal wound has now become their personality or character, right? And it's also, it puts us sometimes into survival mode. Trauma. So that's where we get, the parents, the former generations who went through all types of traumas and were never given the safe space to process, navigate, and heal, became parents. And then what happens is, because they were never helped, and the thing about trauma is that I always say to people that the mind is such a powerful thing because the subconscious is 90% of the mind, and 10% is the behaviors, the reactions, the things people say. It's only 10%. So everything that happens to us sits in the subconscious. So that trauma, that parent, the former generation who something happened to them, it could be anything when they were 3 years of age, or it could be apartheid, it could be anything that they went through that they never processed. And then what happens is we see it in their behaviors. Maybe they're highly anxious, or their coping mechanisms, they're drinking not even alcohol. It could be just the over-the-counter medication, their relationship with food, or they're functioning from a place of lack, a place of pain. And when someone is functioning from that place, they're on survival mode. You give them 10 rand, they feel they've won the lottery. They want to buy anything and everything, that they've always wanted, right? Because they haven't healed. And what happens is children, then the parents who have, children, then the children are watching this. And it becomes part of their norm. They normalize this abnormality as the norm. And I think that's where then it can be passed on from generation to generation. And what happens with that subconscious is that as you are also experiencing your own things, it becomes compounded, right? Meaning now it becomes complex trauma. Is that not only is it how you were raised, it's because when children also struggle with trauma, they for example, they don't hate their parents, they start to hate themselves. And what happens is then they develop issues which come up in their adulthood, whereby that child who was raised in that trauma-filled home is now an adult who struggles in relationships. They're now people pleasers, for example, or they just put others first and themselves last, or they just struggle with boundaries. And it becomes difficult. So the trauma doesn't vanish. It just sits and it waits for us to have the capacity to deal with it.
Dr. Tumi, quite a bit said there, and I'm trying to process it. And I'm like, you just said that the lack of processing things can be the foundation of the trauma. So I'm trying not to be traumatized by this conversation. I want to get into just understanding trauma. Is it our inability to process? Like, what stops us from processing what just happened to us?
Sometimes the mind or our spirit does that to protect us. So for example, you are told about, somebody's passing, but you at that point you don't have the capacity. Could it be age? Could be that you're just not in the space to feel it, or it's just too much for you. So the mind, to protect you, it suppresses some of the things, and then it comes out in bits and pieces. It's almost like you're, for example, in denial, then it comes up a little bit, a little bit, then after the funeral you start living without the person, and day by day you get these reactions and you heal, but you don't actually forget this person. What you need to do is to learn how to grow around the grief, hopefully in a adjusted manner, because it can also go south whereby you develop poor coping strategies because of the trauma you developed, right? Where you're just so dissociated from the emotions because they're so intense when they do try and come in, because therapy and healing is about bringing the person and their emotions together. And hence you get people, for example, I've worked with prisoners. When you ask them, why do you do what you do, they'll tell you, doc, when I was 3 years of age, this happened to me, so I'm angry. So this 40-year-old adult is functioning from a place of a 3-year-old pain, and they have so far dissociated from their emotions that they cannot even benefit from therapy because of that, because now it's become their character, and we diagnose them probably with antisocial personality disorder because it has become their character. And unfortunately, you need to choose healing. And I think that's what is difficult, that you need to admit that you have a problem. The same way we say someone with a substance abuse problem needs to admit that they have the problem. They don't need to come sober. They just need to acknowledge that they're not okay. And the work can then begin. And it's a daily, intentional journey.
Yeah. The voice there of Dr. Gitumedzi Tumi Mashego joining us this evening, a clinical and sports psychologist, speaker, author, as well as mindset and performance life coach. It is 48 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. A quick breather. When we get back, we continue conversations.
madapiri pazoshitika
madotolo oposa 1500 amene amagwira ntchito yaulere mu zipatala zaboma mu dziko la Zambia azanyanyala ntchito lachisanu sabata yammawa, ndipo Daniel Shabanda kutambasula nkhaniyi.
Madotolo oposa 1500 amene amagwira ntchito mopanda malipiro apamwezi dziko la Zambia akuyembekezera kuyamba kunyanyala ntchito. Ichi ndi chifukwa chakuti boma lalephera walemba ntchito monga mmene lidawalonjezera. Channel Africa News yalankhulana ndi mkulu wa bungwe la madotolo la Resident Doctors Association of Zambia, Dr. Paul Chiwe, akugomeza kuti madotolo ambiri amene akugwira ntchito mu zipatala zaboma akugwira ntchito yaulere, ndipo ali ndi chiyembekezo chakuti tsiku lina adzalembedwa ntchito ndi boma.
zochitika pa nthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo, lolemba mpaka lachisanu ndi madapiri.
Africa's voices, Africa's journeys. They all on African Diaries.
It is 50 after 10 p.m. Central Africa time. We're still in conversation with Dr. Tumi Mashego, a clinical and sports psychologist. And today we are exploring self-love through the lens of generational trauma and healing from that place. Dr. Tumi, we end off there with us just highlighting that at some point, at some stage, there was a context in which one experienced something, and that's what began the trauma, right? There was an inception point. Essentially, something happened. My question with generational trauma is that sometimes you don't know anything happened. I'll give you a context. You grew up in a home where money wasn't spoken about. It didn't seem wrong. But now that you're an adult, you're realizing how much you don't know about money, how you don't know how to navigate money, and you're now angry. And so how do you know that a trauma exists when it's passed on from generation to generation?
I think you look back at, your family context to see, okay, actually, when I look back, mom actually made me feel a little bit anxious when it came to money, or my relationship with money. I think, though, it starts with the self. So if you look at your relationship with money, right, you see that actually I'm a bit anxious when I have or when I don't have money. And and let me sit maybe with someone like a clinical psychologist who can actually connect the dots for me to realize that actually how I grew up is what influenced, my relationship with money or my relationship with people, because it's not always in our awareness that this was actually traumatic because it was normalized, it was the norm. So sometimes you do need a mirror to assist you to see that actually this is where it connects. Because what happens is people come into my room and they say, my therapy rooms, and they say, you know what, doc, I've got anxiety. I don't understand the root cause, when I have money, when I don't, etc. Then when we actually journey to that place, we actually start to make the connection so that the person can grieve that this is, how I grew up, and start to learn and unlearn and relearn and, learn what is a functional way to relate to money. And sadly, trauma is not our fault, right? But the healing, I think that's the difficulty, is that it's always our responsibility. We need to actually choose the healing for us to benefit from the healing, which is not easy. It takes courage to come see me, for example. It takes courage to admit that mom or dad or my caregiver, who I loved so much, actually did not have the capacity to do some of those things. And we need to, as adults, we need to humanize sometimes our caregivers to say, actually, they did the best they could. But hey, they've got this toxicity, or they struggled with this, and it now created this thing in me. But how do I heal going forward?
Sure. Dr. Tumi, there is a school of thought that suggests that trauma can be detected in the DNA. So things like depression, anxiety can be found in your DNA and within your DNA strand. With that context in mind, I then went on to see that people are further prone to being anxious than perhaps an individual who hasn't had that kind of experience in their lineage. For individuals who find themselves at that point where there is nothing that connects to that experience, it's just a feeling that rises, that they're more prone to it, they're more prone to depression. When they experience things, they tend to think they feel more, whereas it's in actual fact trauma that was inherited. How do they then begin their journey of healing?
That awareness, self-awareness is important. But I think also we need to understand that there's what we call a genetic predisposition, meaning some people are predisposed to anxiety, right? So when things happen to them, right, in their lineage, then they are more predisposed or more at risk to develop depression than others. Meaning also when we get someone come into the office, we take a history to say, tell us about your family. We want that family history. And you find that actually the parent who struggled or who passed on this trauma response or trauma that they experienced is because they were also depressed, but they never got the treatment. That's why they behaved in the way they behaved. They spoke in the way they spoke. They reacted and acted the way they did because they were triggered and they were not assisted. So we also that's why we want that family history as well, to see whether it runs in the family. Because when someone develops depression or any mental health issue, there's a likelihood that it's actually there somewhere in the family. Maybe not as exacerbated as the current client presenting or the current generation, right? Maybe it's more they show it more or they express it more, but you might find that the parents of the current generation also struggled. It's just maybe they developed poor coping mechanisms that they never really linked it to their mental health. But definitely, yes, it is learned behavior, but there is also that genetic part of it. But that's not to say that if you don't have the genetic predisposition, that you also will not develop anxiety or depression. Because remember, it's really just about something that happens to you, that your nervous system is just struggling with it. The brain wiring is struggling with it. The neurotransmitters, are not adapting the way they usually do because of just how you are wired.
Sure. Dr. Tumi, what I'm realizing is that this body, this mind, this being is such a delicate thing to navigate altogether. Let's take in some commentary. There's a question around confrontation. Do we need to confront the people that have traumatized us? Is that a necessity?
in therapy, we do often request, as part of the healing, that we do say to people, when something happens to you, when it's in your head, in your mind, you need to sort of let it out. So we recommend, for example, writing letters. It doesn't have to be face to face, because sometimes, you must understand that you don't control how the person will react. So if you are there trying to confront your parent about how they traumatized you, they might not give you the reaction that you need to heal. So you don't heal because someone acknowledges that they hurt you or they traumatized you. You heal because you start healing yourself. You get the closure for yourself, because sometimes people don't have the capacity, and the only thing you can change is yourself. So I think it's important to discuss with whoever's helping you, what the confrontation will cause, or what is the reason for it? What is the reason behind that? What do you want to gain when you confront? And remember, when we go to a person and we tell them, you did this, they're probably going to be defensive. So even when you go to have this conversation with them, I always say to people, talk about I experienced this and it hurts me deeply. It's different to you always hurting me.
Sure.
Right. So you need to start setting boundaries, which what they do is protect you, but they also make you vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. But it helps you discern, because if I tell you that, when I experienced this, it hurt me deeply, and your reaction is get over it, then I can discern that, okay, this person doesn't hear me. They'll never hear me. Right. So is it worth it going to have this conversation with them? I don't think so. But you can have other ways, like writing a letter, not to give it to them, and please don't WhatsApp it to them. It's more about coming with that letter to as part of therapy, and you
Yeah.
talk about the feelings there in that letter, because sometimes when we've been traumatized, we're on survival mode. We're like soldiers. We're not even aware of how deep the pain goes. But in expressing, in journaling, in talking about the experience, the true essence of the impact of the emotions comes out. But also what I do also, I say, okay, let's talk about going forward. Right now that you've recognized the past, and the present where you are at, in connection with this thing that happened to you, what do you then say is going to happen going forward? Because that's all you can take charge of. So when you talk about the future, it's I will continue, living my life and ensure that I heal, and I will treat this and understand that you don't have the capacity to be there for me the way I need, right? And how you are going to move on.
Sure. Lastly, Dr. Dumi, just as a parting shot, and we need to keep this one brief, for those who are saying, I don't have access to psychologists, psychological facilities, perhaps it's a pocket thing, perhaps it's just an access, as in where they live. They don't know where their nearest psychologist is, and one that they feel they can trust. What are some of the fundamental steps, 3 steps that one should take to begin that healing journey?
I think first is to be aware that we're raised by human beings who were limited. Therefore, they could have done things to you, but it doesn't mean that this is what must define you going forward. So once you realize that you're not okay, I think, start journaling, for example, just to understand and go deep. I always say go deep. It's like don't just write the events. Go deeper to how they made you feel, right? And then, okay, I acknowledge these feelings, and then going forward, I intend to heal in this way or do this for myself, and keep moving. I think the case study, or the person who sent the voice note, mentioned that he started to run. But I always say to people, be careful that you're not now bringing in something that will become sort of endorphin releasing. But once you can't do that, then you are a mess. So make sure that whatever it is, the intervention you get actually really helps you sit with that pain. And we are there in the public sector. Just search for us. There are free services online. Please search. Just make sure it's qualified people who can help you process this pain, because it's really something that sometimes we need a mirror for someone to help you move on from it. They talk about heal that inner child, because as you've experienced that trauma, it hasn't gone away until you actually acknowledge it and heal from it, and know that you can move on past it.
Sure. Dr. Dumi, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you on the show.
Thank you so much.
The voice there of Dr. Kitumezi Tumi Mashego, a clinical and sports psychologist.
Conversations that touch the heart and inspire change. Here on African Diaries, only on Channel Africa. Join us on www.channelafrica.co.za.
A minute after 11 p.m. Central African time, from healing from generational trauma, and this by choice, to learning someone else's language so that you can share a love bond with this person. No, not necessarily romantic per se, but just showing love to your neighbor by virtue of learning how they communicate, how they speak, what do they speak in. You know, that I think is a very powerful form of communal love. That comes your way in this hour. I'd love to hear from you. Please do find us on WhatsApp. The number is +278 3288 6684.
Africa Speaks on African Diaries with Sheila Ndikumana.
Initiating rage process.
Now which kind life where I never see? I carry God so I fear nothing. Steady increase in the commas. Comma. Original no be parody. You know fit clear for your memory. Whether now winter or summer. I did Barbados, Savannah. Living life, see my fire burning bright within the inside me. Small leeway, they mighty, they never know I color. To the move fine, check and balance. Everything inside my mind daily. Trust me, you can't fool me. Energy don't got logo, more friendly and conscious. I'm allergic to so. I'm not ready for confusion. They're telling me make I show love. Stability on bono. Everything a connection. I'm not ready for confusion. Things happen inside life. Try to make I live my life. Dreams come true. If not fight the fight, make you no go tired. Fire they go. You need to put your body and soul. Leave your worries alone. I don't Savannah, living life. See my fire burning bright within the inside me. Small leeway, they mighty, they never know I color. To the move fine, check and balance. Everything inside my mind daily. Trust me, you can't fool me. Energy don't got logo, more friendly and conscious. I'm allergic to so. I'm not ready for confusion. They're telling me make I show love. Stability on bono. Everything a connection. I'm not ready for confusion. Now which kind life will I never see? I carry God so I fear nothing. Steady increase in the commas. Comma. Yeah.
London.
Steady increase in the commas. Comma.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect.
Million boy. 13 milli with another Dovafia King Sena Baratri. Allô papa, j'ai encore tapé le million. J'attends la transaction. Ils sont pas prêts pour la suite. Zéro fuite, my baby. Ils m'ont pas vu venir. Fique mi son, nous comptons mi baby baoade. Ella mi ona. Aso cubana, na merezuma bon point. Précis dans le jeu, être à l'abri du danger. Comme jamais, je suis solide, reconnu par la police. Y'en a beaucoup dans le que ça. On part à la chasse.
multiplier des sommes. Rendez-vous au sommet, pour la réussite j'ai le seum. Maman wa mbabola, aya lulwa lava, jiruwa bogova, bagida bogota maestro. Nuke mule wa mwere jamais, on va tester comme Fleuris Italie. Negro mawa, nyao mila toleme. Every Mario, two Mario, four Mario, they call it the job come. Look at it, yeah. You might be a medic, but I feel my goal. Andale, baby, yeah, on s'en va de l'autre côté. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. Oh, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. Oh, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. Oh, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement. Ils étaient où? C'est conseillé quand j'avais rien, j'étais au fond. Fond. Tu m'as blessé, je t'ai blessé, au final tu tombes sur mon vie. On la voit kilo, je suis sorti d'un dos. Moi j'ai fait la queue. À chacun sa croix, rien n'est gratuit. Nous les méthodies. Negro mawa, nyao rami la toleme. Every Mario, two Mario, four Mario, they collect the job comme. Nous gagnons, yeah. You might be a medic, but I feel my goal. Andale, baby, viens, on s'en va de l'autre côté. J'gonna. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. Oh, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. Oh, j'avance seulement. Moi j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. Oh, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement, j'avance seulement, j'avance seulement. J'avance seulement. À Pékin, Bogota. Travail de l'eau. Marie a 8. Junior a dans la paix. Pas combien adoré. Young Rich. Never forget my people, never forget my ghetto. Tu connais très bien le Colombien, tu reconnais. Marie Bogota, chef de guerre en personne, quand tu m'as fier. La concu est pillée. Capitale à nos pieds. Pays en otage. Bisous. Bang. Didier Adjakli, I see you, man.
This is Pakin Chenzu taking us to Togo with that one titled Millions Boy. I see you there. So before that, we had Arya Stark coming in with Commas. If you've just joined us, thank you so much for choosing us over the rest. This is Channel Africa's African Diaries. In just a short bit, we're going to be getting a lens through academia when it comes to the relationship between language and communal love, and this in the form and through the experience of learning someone else's language, right? Outside your own, outside the pride that one would possess, knowing that they speak their own tongue. How does it influence communities when we learn each other's languages is the question. How do we preserve language through this shared experience? If you want to send through your questions, you're more than welcome to do so. +27 634, or rather 6 +2783 is the new number. 288-6684.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
The story that moves the continent. It's on African Diaries on Channel Africa.
11 after 11 p.m. Central Africa time. Let's get into conversation with Professor Mpongwepe, who is a C2NFR rated scholar, executive director at the University of South Africa, and a globally recognized authority in the library and information science, archives, and indigenous knowledge systems, with over 150 publications, award-winning anthropologies, as well as extensive experience in research, education, and community engagement across Africa and beyond. Prof joins us to bring his unique perspective on the ways and I suppose the knowledge behind culture as well as language and how they intersect. Do they allow us to love each other more is the fundamental question that we're going to be tackling. And we, of course, are going to allow Professor Ngwepe to join us and share their thoughts and views. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Good evening and evening to our viewers at home, and thank you.
Your work often intersects with indigenous knowledge and, of course, these in archives. How do you observe language learning playing a role in fostering community cohesion?
Language learning is very, very important, especially if you learn other people's language, because it helps you to bridge the cultural gap and you are able to know other people's culture and also think differently from how you have been thinking, and you are able to expand your thinking and cognitive development. That is why it is necessary that people should learn other people's languages, and also because South Africa is a multilingual society, and in a multilingual society, it is good for us to be able to communicate with one another through learning other people's language. And more than that, it also helps to preserve our languages. You know, our languages, as much as they are official languages, is more of ceremonial, and then the development is not that much because they are not used in the economy, they are not used in the classroom, they are not even used in the public space. But if we learn each other and then we speak in different languages, we can also help to preserve these languages.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Prof. Let's talk about some of the examples that you've seen across the context of Africa. I know that your work extends beyond South Africa. Have you seen typical examples of what it is we're currently discussing, where communities successfully bonded, preserved culture, preserved ways of existing, understood each other through the preface of these as well?
It is mostly here in South Africa because in many countries they don't have many official languages like we do. You go to Tanzania, for example, and Kenya, they do have different languages, but the main language that they are using is Kiswahili. Then everybody is learning that language. But in South Africa, we are blessed or fortunate that we were allowed to have at least more than 10 official languages. And we can be able to learn or understand some of these languages, and it will help us. So it's South Africa is a unique country. It's unlike many other countries where the small languages are more marginalized. But here, even those that are marginalized, they are at least given that official status. Although they are, sometimes I feel like it is ceremonial, but they at least given that official status.
What does this then say about the preservation of language across the continent? Do we see ourselves losing more languages? I mean, I'm thinking about the context of Nigeria that has over 250 languages, right, within context. I know that Kenya has some 40 languages. And if these are not interacted in, not shared, not experienced, do we see the decay of culture and language because of that?
Yes, I think we are losing some languages, and even here in South Africa, just closer to home, the new language, we are told that only Oma Katerina is the last fluent speaker of the language, although she has already taught her granddaughter and the another guy there in the Northern Cape. But you can see that even as we are closer to home, we can see the languages that we are losing. And what about those that are not even recognized or written in other areas that we don't know? Like as you said, Nigeria has got many languages, and so is Kenya. And those that are not written officially, they are highly likely to be lost for good. And or even if they are not lost, but as the native speakers or the mother tongue speakers of those languages, as they through the natural attrition of death, and we are highly likely to lose many more languages because we are thinking that English is our language, whereas we should learn our languages and then also learn the languages that are closer to us. And that way we will help to preserve the languages and also develop the languages.
Absolutely. How is modern technology or digital platforms supporting these efforts to learn each other's languages, to speak our languages more fluently? What are we seeing in that context?
I will just throw closer to home here at UNISA. At UNISA, we've got so many programs that we run in order to preserve the language and then distribute this language. For example, one of because we wanted to make the African languages or all languages to be the language of research and language of teaching and learning, that it is possible. And one of the main project that we did was to develop a multilingual proverb dictionary that was led by one professor, Professor Letswalo, who I was working with. And this one is got entries, 200 entries in each language, and is available free of charge online. And people are able to access the equivalent of a proverb in any of the language. So we are trying to avoid a situation wherein we translate content from English to indigenous languages, so that we generate content from indigenous language and let it be translated to English. Even in teaching and learning, that is what we are trying to move towards in terms of as we teach in indigenous language, and we generate that content in indigenous language, not the other way around. And the other one, which is more for the youth or the young ones, is the use of emojis in language learning. And luckily, even in the language that I speak, which is Northern Sud, we do even have a word for emoji, which is a Twancho Emo. So we are able to also develop the vocabulary in that regard. And the professor that I just talked about, he also running another project on the indigenous words of vocabulary in robotics, so able to be relevant. So the technology, especially the disruptive technology, they also offer us an opportunity for preserving the language, capturing and also preserving, so that those that want to learn through translation and other means, they can be able to learn.
The voice there of Professor Mpongwe joining us this evening, a C2 NFR rated scholar, Executive Director at the University of South Africa, and a globally recognized authority in library and information science, archives, and indigenous knowledge systems. Prof, thank you so much for time. We appreciate you on this show, and we hope that you continue to further your research such that we all see the importance of language and preserving it through contexts of communities.
Thank you very much.
It is 20 after 11 p.m. Central Africa time. A quick breather, some music. When we get back, we're going to be looking at unique language forms and why it's important for us to learn this particular one.
Africa, It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo kutuli bwanji ndi
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 6 decades strong, Channel Africa continues to inspire Africa and the world, proudly sharing
the African perspective.
Greatness. Simbun with the melody. DJ Neptune. Soundboy really get hit me. I see you smile and you light up my life. No we deny you're the light of my life. In all the stars it's already written. In all your eyes I see everything. No, give me deja vu. You name me once I go there times two. Shave fast you could say I do. Tell me the truth, yeah. See as you find, one of a kind. You to the shine, carry them more than me. The way you whine, put your behind. No other man, can love you more than me. Can't give me face, don't give me space. When you go there, go on my mother, me. Shorty now your matter go there bother me. All of me, baby I go call up. Jackie, my boy she love because I go wait, I go wait, I go wait, I go wait. Oh baby, I go call up. Go Jackie, my boy she love because I go wait, I go wait, I go wait, I go wait. I've seen many bodies with the body, but nobody got the body like you do. Nobody fit to do me like you do. Nobody fit to do me like you do. Fancy gone, classy gone. No contender, just see what. See me kaya, so you go to buy me low. You government, girl, I do your Babylon. See as you find, one of a kind. You to the shine, carry them more than me. The way you whine, put your behind. No other man, can love you more than me. You give me face, don't give me space. When you go there, go on my mother, me. Shorty now your matter go there bother me. All of me, baby I go call up. Jackie, my boy she love because I go wait, I go wait, I go wait, I go wait. Oh baby I go call up. Go Jackie, my boy she love because I go wait, I go wait, I go wait, I go wait. Baby I go call up. Jackie, my boy she love because I go wait, I go wait, I go wait, I go wait. Oh baby I go call up. Go Jackie, my boy she love because I go wait, I go wait, I go wait, I go wait. Greatness.
24 after 11 p.m. Central Africa time. Beautiful music coming through there. DJ Neptune. And that one titled Wait for You alongside Sounds. It is time for us to continue our indigenous, I suppose not in actual fact indigenous, but tilted towards that end. Us looking at communal love through learning each other's languages. And we are joined by Sidi Hlanga, who is a coordinator for Indigenous Languages Action Forum. And she is going to be helping us understand the importance, firstly, of preserving Indigenous language, but also how this and learning each other's Indigenous languages can bring about better communities for all. Sidi, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Hi. Hello. This is Siki. It's Siki, not CD.
I see. Apologies there. Apologies.
In fact, Sikelelo. Maybe if I said Sikelelo, there wouldn't be such a mistake. At least you didn't call me Vicky, like people do in Cape Town. Believe it or not.
I do. Wow, that's a bit of a stretch, but Siki, we get it. Thank you a ton for that. Let's get into conversation. Indigenous languages, the preservation thereof, and I'm thinking about the continental context. And I was just on a conversation, or rather, in conversation with Professor Ngwepe, who was sharing with us how we're seeing this decay of indigenous languages, because unfortunately not all of them are considered official languages. From your point of view, your perspective, how does this affect communal dispositions, right? So I'll give you a context example. In Kenya, I think there are over 40 languages, but I think not more than 3 are considered indigenous, or rather the official languages. In South Africa, there are more than 12 languages spoken in the country, and we still see that these 12 are the recognized. Are we seeing a decay of language, and how is this affecting communities?
Thank you so much. This is a really important conversation, and I'm not sure if you're aware that next month is the Mother Tongue Month in the world. So I'm glad that we're starting the conversation beyond the official Mother Tongue Month. I would say that the indigenous languages in South Africa, I have to say that in particular in South Africa, I think South Africans love their languages, even though there, of course, is a concern that there's a decline. As I think the previous speaker mentioned, the Ngu language, for example, only has one language speaker. But even that, it just shows what can happen when people stop speaking their languages. But in that case, we know that it was because of oppression. It had nothing to do with the fact that people no longer wanted to speak their languages, but they were persecuted. And if you spoke the language, so she was the last speaker, and it's a language that is currently being preserved. And the education system is really helpful in the country in adopting mother tongue based education. So it's a multilingual. So it's not just promoting indigenous languages in the classroom, because it's been proven that if you learn, let's say, mathematics or any other subject, and you first have to learn another language outside of your home language, what happens is that you basically doing so much more work. You have to think and translate before you answer the questions, and so it disadvantages children who have mother tongue, like who speak, let's say, Siswati as a mother tongue, and then now they have to learn in English. And so, yes, it's good for multilingualism. Yes, it's good for understanding, but it does disadvantage them compared to children whose first language is English, and everything they learn in their language. And then you have to call the other children slower, but they're not slower. They're doing double the work. So our education system, I'm really proud of what our country is currently doing, and at least ensuring that the younger children are growing up with a multilingual education where they can learn in their mother tongue and be multilingual. And so that gives me hope, first of all, that the languages will not perish, because we know that with that comes culture, comes indigenous sciences, comes indigenous proverbs, which is like a whole perspective on how we see the world. And if you're multilingual, I'm sure you are as well, you'll know that any language that you speak, or if you speak, whether in fact you even start viewing your own language in a particular way, you get a new perspective on your own language as well, and in the worldview of how you view the world and how others view the world when you speak any other language, whether it's English. It gives you a perspective into the world and into society. So it's a really, really good skill to have. But of course, there is a debate with language. It can be quite a sensitive issue because it has to do with culture, and it was also tampered with. with colonization. But also, I think what we forget is that language grows and it develops, and there's nothing. Language is not static. We look at Shakespeare's language, for example, that was English, and there was 1600s English, and it looks very different to the English that exists now in England, right? And the English that's spoken in England differs from the one spoken in the US, and the one that we'll call South African English, or English across the continent. People kind of change language and they make it become whatever it is. And so in some ways, it would to fit their culture, to fit their ways of being. And in some ways, we do form language every year. Actually, you would have noticed that every year we have like a new words even being added in the English language. Yeah.
Siki, with that being said, I want to then delve into, because you said quite a bit and like a number of questions were popping up, right? I think for me, one of the fundamental questions would then be, if language is continuously evolving and we are seeing strides to ensure that indigenous languages are kept, they're expressed through, they're lived through, they're an experiential base for the African. Do we see prospects of cultures and I suppose languages merging? And I'm saying this because you said something so interesting. You said that we see words being added to the English dictionary, some which I, in my mind, contest, but that's besides the point. Do we see this evolving of language where you'll have a Sotho word that's in Zulu, like we sometimes borrow from the English language? Do you think we'll see that borrowing happening, that exchange happening, that will bring us closer together as people?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think especially on the internet. I mean, you would have noticed that even if you are on X, for example, or on TikTok, where I think people get even more frustrated because South Africans love their languages, and will comment using their languages, but the whole world wants to know what South Africans are saying. South Africans are thinking, well, we're just talking. We're not necessarily trying to have secrets. And so people, even beyond the shores of South Africa, are learning South African indigenous languages. There's a quote that I love that says, if I think it's from Blue Like Jazz, it says, if you love something so much, it's basically, that's not an exact quote, but basically what it means is that when someone watches you love something so much, they'll get infected and want and love it as well. And so I feel like that's really what's happening with South African languages, and this is why South African languages are really becoming global. And I'm not talking about Black Panther and Xhosa. That was tortured, really. But listen, we're still happy. We made it.
Oh, goodness. Do not go there.
And we had, and then you go to like Yale. Yale, they're teaching Zulu. That in Harvard, in Harvard, they've accepted a Xhosa major a student, who's someone who's doing research on this Xhosa. We have in like several universities in the US, in Russia. Russia has also taken up Zulu to teach Zulu in one of the universities, and they're developing his Xhosa. China, some universities in China are teaching Zulu, some Xhosa. And of course, what's going to happen is it's not just going to be Zulu and Xhosa. Those are just access. It's just the first language entries. Others are going to be interested in Chivenda. Others, of course, Swahili is very popular as well, because it's a regional language. So I don't think we can escape the merger of words, because cultures are coming together. And I'll make an example with Johannesburg. Johannesburg is the perfect example of what happens when all the cultures come together, and they pronounce words in a way that we wouldn't. For example, they hardly pronounce the Q's that we will pronounce along the coast, whether we're Zulu or Xhosa. Instead of using a word that has a click, they'll use a softer word. Let's say qala, they'll say qala, which is a completely different meaning. So it can be quite upsetting if you are a purist from the coast, whether you're Zulu or Xhosa, like that's not how you say it, but this is how they say it here, because maybe that they were not mother tongue speakers of Zulu when they kind of came across Zulu, and so they spoke it how their language sounds. And so then the word becomes a new word, but you all still know what it means. You still understand what the person is saying. So language purists, some can say they really kill the language, but I do think they are necessary. The language purists are necessary because they do help preserve the language. But at the same time, if we want to go back once again, I think to any language that's ever existed, I don't believe that there's a single language that has ever existed in its absolute pure form and it's never changed. Even if we look at, I believe that culture is something that grows because language exists within the context of people who are living new lives, who are discovering new things, who are meeting new people, who are speaking to be heard, and understood, and borrow words. And so then what you have in Johannesburg, you have this melting pot where words have new sounds that or have lost certain sounds that are more pronounced in certain regions. And then you've got places like Pretoria, where, again, they've also created their own language, which is Sipitori. One day they might say they want that to be an official language. I don't know.
Siki. Tense. Wow.
We don't know. And it's like, what, like, who knew that one day we will have the 12th language, for example, as a sign language? No one could have imagined that. And I know, I firmly believe that someone like Bombi is really the reason sign language really became, it was, I don't know if you remember, at Nelson Mandela's funeral when he interpreted for Barack Obama. And it was, and it became global. And so while we may have thought, oh my goodness, what is that? But actually, we can firmly say that is what really brought attention to sign language globally. Because I remember a tweet that I read from someone, an actress in Hollywood, who said, they've been working so hard as even as Hollywood, they've tried so hard to get the attention, to bring attention to sign language, and no one's paid attention to it. And this one man in South Africa who was not known the day before kind of creates these signs that are kind of confused next to Barack Obama, and instantly it becomes global. And that might singularly change the destiny of sign language. And I think it deserves something, even though it was a mistake. It changed the world. And our sign language is in many countries is recognized, including our own country. And I mean, some things happen out of mistakes, but this is how language develops. Now we have sign language, even, which was not necessarily a language that was imagined as a language that we'll ever see as part of the 12 languages.
Siki, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your presence on the show and the work that you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much. If anyone is interested in any further interesting conversations, they can follow us on all our social media platforms on Indigenous Languages Action Forum. We talk about everything. You'll find scientists, you'll find every kind of conversation that surrounds language. Thank you so much for this important conversation, and thank you for all the different ways and the time that you've given and the different speakers you've invited. Thank you.
The voice there of Sikelelo Dlanga joining us this evening, the coordinator for the Indigenous Languages Action Forum. Find them on social media. Keep the dialogue going. It is 41 after 11 p.m. Central Africa time.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
One continent, 1,000 stories. It's African Diaries, 10 till midnight on Channel Africa.
It is 18 before midnight in Central Africa. Time for a follow-up to the conversation you were just listening to with Sikelelo Dlanga, the coordinator of the Indigenous Languages Action Forum, and we had an opportunity to just touch base on the importance of preserving Indigenous language, but also stringent, I suppose, purist ways and purist desires won't necessarily fit the way forward when thinking of how language is ever growing, ever expanding. And because we live in communities and not silos, we will see this amalgamation of languages. Speaking about language, Siki did point out a very interesting event that took place in 2013, in actual fact. And this was the signage of Thamsanqa Janji, who is known for having signed at Nelson Mandela's memorial service in 2013. Many deaf language experts and organizations said his signing at the event did not reflect recognized South African Sign Language and did not communicate what was being spoken. Oh, Bombi. Oh, Bombi. But now we're going to be talking about the importance of sign language and how it has rose to fame and importance, and the necessity for everyone to be able to freely communicate. And joining us this evening is Andiswa Gebashe, who joins us, language activist. Andiswa, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Thank you so much.
So Siki was just making a pointer there to say that 2013 marks the highlight and the rise of sign language, not across South Africa, but across the globe. Is that your observation as well?
Yes, it has been. I mean, it shouldn't be, but yes. I mean, with South African Sign Language, we have a rather colorful history.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me play nice, yes.
And you know what I do think? I think it's important for every part of the story to be preserved, right? Every part of the story, the evolution, the cracks, the creases, I think that brings about character, and it reflects the people, you know? And I think as much as one could argue otherwise, I do think that the word colorful is the most correctly used here. Let's talk about sign language and people's proficiency in sign language. And I'm saying this as I think about my own proficiency, and I'm like, well, Sheila, are we seeing a growth? Are we seeing an interest? Are we seeing people gravitate towards this language form?
We're seeing a growth, especially on social media. People are jumping, they're learning the language. But also, I think just important to note is that most things now, they do have sign language interpretation including the sitting commission. If you look at the previous commissions, there wasn't any South African Sign Language interpretation. Right now, people have access. It's unfortunate that it's not shown on the main news channel, but on YouTube it is there. So it's a progress. Most events now, it's almost mandatory for all events to be accessible in South African Sign Language, which is great. Something that was there in the past, but not so much. But obviously, we would always want more, where it's not only like 3 hours and 24 hours where there's accessibility, but there's a full-on accessibility on our tallies, on our forms of communication or anything, because with knowledge, you have abundance of freedom of choosing differently, because now you have access to knowledge. There's a saying that when you know better, you do better.
Sure. Speaking about knowing better, Andy, so I'm hoping by the end of our chat that you will teach us a word or two, even a sentence. Come on now. Let's say something productive, proactive in sign language. I want to talk about the different kinds of sign language. So you go on to specifically highlight South African Sign Language. Would it be presumptuous to say that every country is meant to have its own sign language?
Every country has its own sign language. In South Africa, we have a sign language. In other countries, they have America, they have ASL, which is the one that you find mostly online. But every country has its own sign language. Now, the beauty about that, or South African Sign Language to be specific, and I'm always going to be biased towards South African Sign Language, is that then there are different dialects within South African Sign Language. I can pick up when a person is signing that which school they went to. Do they go to Ifata, which is a school at Umtata, or do they go to Evulega, where we had 100% pass rate in KZN, or they went to Soweto at Sizwili School for the Deaf, or in Rosebank, just by how they're signing. The dialects are different. As it would with isiZulu saseNquthu, with isiZulu saseMlazi, and you can pick up with, oh, you are from Lescoti, or you are from there. So that's the beauty. And I dare to say that South African Sign Language is one of the best sign languages in the world, because it's just rich with history, and it's not dependent on a spoken language. It stands on even the Tsotsi Tao of South African Sign Language is just beautiful, because we are that nation.
Sure. Andy, so at this stage, we should have you on every week so that we can learn something, because you are saying a mouthful and I'm going, wait, there is Tsotsi Tao. There are different dialects. They're not language dependent, but we can identify the region where this person is from. I think just as a parting shot, Andy, so what would you say to people who are thinking to themselves, I don't know a single thing about sign language? I can't tell my left from right. I have no idea where we're going. Where do I start in terms of learning? And this is out of interest. This is out of preserving culture and connecting with others.
Yes, there are platforms. Different universities offer South African Sign Language classes. Deaf schools usually offer the classes for free. I would say be wary online. Everybody, like right now, I'm going to be showing you how to at least sign I love you and I really love you. And then there you go. You start your own class on TikTok. With minimum knowledge.
Andy, choosing violence, but okay. No, we hear you. We hear you.
but just be weary. I prefer, which is an ethically correct thing, that language is being taught by the native owners of the language. Where a deaf person is teaching sign language, then yes, because there are certain things that you would miss. isiZulu is my second home language, but I'm not confident enough to go and teach in Molobane. There are certain things I would miss because language and culture are intertwined, and there are certain things that you would miss. So let's just be wary, because there's so much TikTok teaching sign language and YouTube.
Yeah.
But the easiest thing, go to deaf schools, Google them. There's Pan South African Language Board. They can also usher you in terms of where to learn. There are apps that if you type South African Sign Language, and again, do not learn American Sign Language if you are in South Africa and you're going to be communicating with a deaf person in South Africa, because some sign are permitted in another country, and in South Africa we perceive them as swearing. So just yes, be very wary. Like a simple sign like this is name in America. In South Africa, this is toilet.
Oh my gosh. This just escalated. Oh, and we're out of time. Andy, so I told you every week, every 1 or 2, we need to have you back here. I think for now, let's learn how to say I love you in sign, please.
Yes, at least the sign is the same internationally. So this is I love you. Okay. And this is really love you. And the new slang, this is I would always love you.
Oh, okay. It's escalating.
Today, by the way, from the youngsters.
Okay.
So young no more, but I'm younger.
Okay, so Andy, so I think we got the first sign, which is I love you. I really love you. We kind of missed your other hand there in frame. If you could just show us again, please.
Yes, so I really love you. It's your index finger with the middle finger that is almost, as yes, so this is I really love you.
Andy, so let's cap it at that. You have been an absolute joy to have on the show this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. If I might just say, you are so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You have the most gorgeous skin and you are absolutely beautiful. Yes, but yeah, good night. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the voice of language activist Andy Swagabashe joining us this evening. It is 6 minutes before the show comes to an end. And as I sort of shrug off that blushing moment, let's give way for Morris Touch to join us.
Right.
Okay, so you just pop in. Okay, Morris. Hello. How are you?
I've always told you. And you thought that I was lying.
Listen, I did not expect to hear you in the background. I thought we'd take a quick breather, maybe a 2-minute song. But nevertheless, it's exciting to have you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well. I've always told you that you're beautiful, but you don't believe me. But anyway, someone else had to say it for me. Thank you very much, Andiswa.
Whereas you can't choose violence on a Monday. We were talking self-love.
No,
we're talking
I'm not being
communal
violent.
love. We were talking about bonding, connecting. Now you're just driving a wedge, sir.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just reiterating what the lady said to you. And you started blushing.
Hey, Morris. Let's talk about the Afro Republic. What can we expect
Happy
on
Monday
the show?
to you.
Thank you. Happy Monday to you
All
too,
right,
sir.
Afro Republic back again as we head towards, this is the last week of January. And we just excited and we loving the fact that we have gone through the month. And we certainly hope that the last few days are going to be as fruitful and as productive as we expect them to be. Fantastic show lined up for you. We are going trending stories as we kickstart our week. We know we kickstart our week on a Tuesday, and we got trending stories within the continent of Africa. There's so much to look at, and there's also good music that does accompany our show, which happens to be a 3-hour ride of fantastic sounds from the continent of Africa and other very interesting stories within the musical and entertainment space. We also have the connection point. I can tell you that last week we did touch on quite a number of areas. We went through to Okavango, Okavango Delta, went to Inyanga, we went to Mount Kilimanjaro. We touched so many spaces, and today we are also going somewhere. Stay with us. It's all happening between 12 midnight and 3 a.m. on Afro Republic.
Absolutely. The voice there of Morris Touch of the Afro Republic. He joins you in just a short bit. 4 minutes to be precise. From the team and I, it has been a pleasure keeping you company. I hope to do this with you again tomorrow on digital. I must say thank you to the team, though. On digital, we had Mr. Tabang Lavisa and Elaine Vengani. On technical production, we had Kathy Chuchumaleka. And on production, we had Puleng Molabatsi. The name is Sheila Ndikumana. And until we meet again, cheers.